We're on.
Okay. Good afternoon, Millis. It is Wednesday, April 15th. I'm Lauren Barnes. I'm the chair of the Millis Select Board. I'm going to be introducing some specific speakers and contributors to today's conversation. I want to welcome you to this 4 o'clock Select Board meeting. It was postponed rather briskly by Mother Nature on Monday. There were widespread power outages. Some of the participants obviously could not attend because of their public safety response, DPW response, and also we were concerned about members of the team and members of the community also not being able to attend by virtue of the loss of power. A couple of announcements to start are that we are going to run this meeting as we have in the past, and that is that we will be inviting participation after an agenda item is raised. That will include subject expert speakers, many of whom are tethered today. The select board will also ask questions of them and perhaps deliberate in some fashion, and then for purposes of public record, we will have a roll call vote. It will be our intent to be responsive to any questions that come from the public. So one way that you can do that is, if you're familiar with Zoom, you can tap the icon next to your picture that has 3 dots, and that's an opportunity for you to raise your hand. We will do our best to be responsive. If for any reason we overlook you, that is unintentional. While the discussion is going on, what best practices would tell you is that it's easier for people to have your voice should be muted, and then when you are done speaking, or when you speak, unmute, then speak, then go back on to mute. Today we have a host of participants. Their names are listed here. Our fire chief, Rick Barrett, and John McVeigh will be leading our conversation about any updates to Millis's ongoing response to the public health crisis of COVID. Our town administrator, Michael Gazinski, and Karen Beret, who are in different locations inside of Town Hall. Kathleen Lannon, our town nurse. Jim McKay from the DPW. My colleagues from the Select Board, James McCaffrey and Peter Germain. We have Town Council on the line with us. We thank him very much. Attorney Jay Tallerman. Our Director of Finance, Carol Johnston. Jennifer Scannell, our Treasurer Collector. Terry Gonzalez, our Town Assessor. And Bob Weiss, who runs our Energy and Economic Development Program. If there's anybody I omitted, we are thrilled to have you, members of the community, members of the staff, and we thank you very much for joining us. So these are the first 3 items that speak directly to the realities of COVID, and in particular, the fact that there are true hardships being felt by the town and by residents of all configurations as well as businesses. So I'm going to invite Chief Barrett and John McVeigh to lead our conversation with respect to our COVID update. And then after our COVID update, we're going to flip to some operational decisions that speak more to water and energy. So for a recap, does anybody have any questions at the outset before we get into this? Hearing none. For those of you who weren't with us, we do post these meetings to the town website, and there you will have found that Millis did declare a state of emergency, and that was to enable our town to be nimble and responsive to relief opportunities, as well as for people in positions of public safety to make important public safety and public health decisions rather fluidly. That could in fact also include emergency procurements. So with that, we continue to have a public dialogue about right to know and what's most important. And I think that this quote, I'm going to read it for those of you who are just listening by audio. The number of Millis cases changes daily. What matters is not the count, but how we behave in public and at home. As the governor has said, wear masks, practice social distancing, and do your part to protect yourself and others. This is from our director of the Millis Health Department, John McVeigh, and I'm going to ask him and our other public safety experts to speak to the town's response to this moment. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, this is John McVeigh. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, John.
Okay. Yeah, just as to start, as a quick rundown for some stats from the state level, I do this every week or every selectmen's meeting regarding COVID, is currently in Massachusetts, there are roughly 25,500 cases. In Norfolk County, there's 2,649 cases, and there are unfortunately 756 deceased because of the COVID pandemic. Testing, which has been great, a lot of testing being done. Currently, almost 117,000 tests have been performed to allow for a better understanding of where this disease is at. And as I've said, in the past, I'll say again that it's like an iceberg theory. You see a certain positive amount of positive cases that you see in towns, cities and towns, but there's an underlying amount of cases that may not be showing up symptom-wise, or it may not be tested. So you have to look at those numbers with a grain of salt, because it's not telling the whole picture. So that being said, I don't know if the fire chief wanted to add anything to that, but those are the numbers thus far. And I know that the state has said that they would be considering, or they will be releasing town and city numbers either today or tomorrow, sometime in the near future, so that those numbers will be broken down even further from the county.
All right, this is Chief Barrett with the Fire Department. I would just echo some of the comments of Mr. McVeigh. Again, we need to continue to practice social distancing, wear a mask when you're out in public, in the grocery store, anywhere there might be people. Again, stay home if you can. The big thing we're seeing is people with symptoms who are not getting tested or not going to the doctor. It is really important that if you believe you have symptoms or you are suffering from COVID-19, to call your primary care physician. It is important for your public safety personnel to know who in town is positive. It's important for the state to know these numbers. So we ask that if you believe you have the symptoms, contact your primary care physician, and they will instruct you on the next steps that you need to take. Again, if you are requiring an ambulance because of your condition, please, when you call 911, give as much information as you can to the public safety dispatcher so that your responders can prepare themselves to treat you and whatever you require. Thank you.
I just have one last thing to mention. I'd like to thank all the stores in town, but in particular Roach Brothers, for doing what they're doing in this pandemic. It's a big task, and they're putting themselves at risk. But just as a reminder that the state has issued guidelines regarding the amount of people that can be in a facility like that, a grocery store, at any given time. So be patient with the system. It's designed to make sure that people are safe, and that to prevent the transmission from occurring in crowded areas, in grocery stores and things of that nature. So understand that those guidelines are there for a reason, and cooperate to the full extent with the stores.
Okay, so John, one of the things that I think the elephant in the room is that there has been a lot of questions about, quote unquote, how many cases Millis has, and you and Chief Barrett have explained that there's many reasons for that number being dynamic and somewhat out of context, because patients can go from either having symptoms but not testing, therefore they're not identified as a case, or somebody has been a case but now they've tested negative. So the question becomes, there's been a range that you have all been monitoring, but day to day, it's really a fluid number. How would you like to address the town and the people who have been raising this issue predominantly on social media if they haven't contacted you directly?
That quote was, excuse me, that quote that was made earlier, it's not the number of cases that changes. The number of cases changes daily in Millis. What matters is not the count, but how we behave in public with masks and good social distancing practices and protecting yourselves and others. The number in and of itself isn't a number that has any real significance as far as what you're seeing as far as the potential of risk in cities and towns. So, you have to, again, take those numbers with a grain of salt. They are not going to, it shouldn't be dictating behavior because to be quite honest with you, they don't accurately represent the underlying cases that may be present in a town, city and town. And I don't know if Kathy Landon wanted to speak more to this, but that's my opinion is that, again, the state's going to release those numbers. I don't know how they're going to break them down. But again, I think just assume that, take the precautions and assume that any person you may meet in public could be positive. And that should be the psychology of the situation.
Could I speak?
Please do.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Kathy Lannon, Chair of the Board of Health. I think one of the things we need to explain in terms of our follow-up of this disease, we're a board that serves two masters. We are a town board, but we also are serving under state laws and regulations. And it's not that we didn't wish to be transparent about the number of cases, but our follow-up is being done under state regulations and under the Department of Public Health. The Department of Public Health had asked the towns not release that information. So we were doing as requested by the body that we're actually performing the service for. Fortunately, they just announced today, because this issue has come up in other towns as well, that they will be providing data at town level. So that will be available at the State Department of Public Health COVID site. So that really solves the issue. We were actually, if we were going to release the data, we would have had to have a Board of Health meeting, and the board would have decided whether or not to do that. But the state finally has addressed the issue, and that information will now be available at town level. I think one of the big issues, we talked about that these numbers aren't representative of how much disease there is. 50% of the cases of COVID, by the only research that's been done on populations, have no symptoms at all. So the only numbers that we're aware of is people who are getting tested with symptoms. Now, it really, you still need a doctor's order to get a test. So it's really at the level of the physicians to decide whether or not the person gets tested. And a lot of physicians are doing what's called presumptive diagnosis. So they assume the patient has it based on the symptoms, but they don't actually get a test. So I just would like to reinforce that the behaviors of social distancing and the recent request that people wear masks out in public is based on the fact that 50% of the cases won't know they have it and can transmit it. So I'd like to make a special plea to people to wear masks. I personally favor the cloth masks because they can be washed. I think you see a lot of people wearing masks in town, but you also see a lot of people that aren't wearing masks. And I think one of the challenges for all of us with our families and our friends is getting younger people to wear masks. That's not a behavior I've seen around town. And hopefully all of us can work to make them understand that wearing masks will protect all of the people that are more susceptible to the disease if they are a silent carrier. So hopefully the issue about seeing the data at town level will be resolved by the state's decision to publish that information.
Okay, great. Just before we go on, I'm looking up and down to see if anybody who has logged in has any specific questions on this topic. I want to just make sure that we all note that on the slide, for those people who are watching the slides, the bottom item is very important to the DPW, which is with all of us using various forms of wipes. Do not put these wipes into pipes. Do not flush them, in other words. They're very harmful to the infrastructure of our plumbing, and the town DPW would like not to be worrying about when they're worrying about roads and recovering from a massive power outage and storms and down trees and things like that. Anybody who has any other health questions can certainly get in touch with the Department of Public Health, and that's where information is posted in a very robust fashion in terms of resources that people can get more information rather easily. So I'm going to move on to the next agenda item related to this, obviously, and that both of them have to do with meals. First of all, the school wants everybody to know that 7 days of meals, that's breakfasts and lunches for Millis school kids, is available by pickup. So what you need to do is call Sean Fallon, whose number is listed here. I will read it, 508-889-4014. That's 508-889-4014. Or you can contact the schools through their website. They have a grab and go meals program. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday pickups from 7:30 to 9 to 10:30 in the morning. So that commitment to providing nutritious lunches for our school kids continues. And we have an appeal from the Millis Food Pantry. They're doing a bag and drop food drive. They have identified 5 staples food items in addition to any and all personal cleaning, personal hygiene, and house cleaning products that they are in very short supply. That list includes peanut butter, spaghetti sauce, cereal, tuna, and toilet paper. So they are asking for this Saturday between 8 and noon, if you can bundle these items and bring them by the Church of Christ, you literally will be able to deposit your bag in a designated area. This is a rain or shine event. And so the Millis Food Pantry thanks you very much. This supports a growing number of local families, your friends, your neighbors, and it's a really important resource. We thank everybody who's been volunteering with the Millis Food Pantry for whom the workload has increased and the need has increased. Any questions on that? I'm going to move now on to the other side of the COVID impact, which are the very real financial impacts. We have certainly concerns about the health and vitality and stability of small business, and we are aware that families have been impacted with loss of income. I'm going to invite our town administrator, Michael Gazinski, and Carol Johnston and Jennifer Scannell to lead the conversation on these next couple of items, noting that our town council, Jay Tallerman, is on. The first one is to discuss delaying our property tax bills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll begin. Once we did hear word that the state legislature had passed local option legislation as part of the COVID-19 relief package for towns to have the option to extend the due date for the fourth quarter real estate bills and or to waive certain late payments for certain types of bills. I did meet with the finance director and the town treasurer collector to discuss what would be the prudent course of action and what we could recommend to the board. And I will ask the finance director and the town treasurer collector to talk a little bit about what the pros and cons of each option are, and we certainly have a recommendation for the board after that information is given out. So Carol, I didn't know if you wanted to just give a brief overview of the two issues and how the town might move forward with those.
Sure. Option one is the option that would extend the local due date for property tax bills. That would, the treasurer collector's done an extensive review of that, and so I'll let her speak to that as well. And the second option is to waive, as the town administrator had said, is to waive other certain interest payments and due dates for other types of payments. So I'm going to let Jennifer take over for this because she's the one who's done all of the research and everything on it. And then after she's finished, we can discuss it.
Good afternoon, Jennifer Scannell. So as Carol and Mike both pointed out, there's two different options on the table before you this afternoon. You have the option of adopting one or both. By adopting either one or both of the options, whether you delay fourth quarter real estate and personal property taxes to a date no later than June 1st, or the second option, if you accept allowing the waiving of interest and fees for any bills to on or after March 10th that are paid late but before June 30th. By extending the quarterly tax bill due date, there is a risk that escrow payments from tax service companies, which are normally guaranteed to the town, could be delayed. These payments represent about half of the real estate payments that we currently receive. Section 11, I discussed it with Mike and Carol, and I think we're in agreement that we don't believe Section 11 that option offers significant benefit to the town's residents. As an alternative to that option, as treasurer collector, I do have the authority to write off $15 in fees and interest for Mass General Law, Chapter 60, Section 15. For the majority of those payments made after March 10th. So really the big commitment that was just sent out was the motor vehicle commitment that was due March 23rd. And also the water bill that was due March 16th. A majority of those payments, if we waive the $15 in interest, would cover most of those payments. So the only thing I would add is that, you know, as treasurer collector, it's my responsibility to determine the cash needs to the town to ensure that there's sufficient liquid assets available to pay current obligations. You know, I think there could be a negative financial implication by accepting, like I said, one or both options. I did speak with the financial advisor last week, and if we did had to do some type of a short-term borrowing, whether it was a bond anticipation note or a revenue anticipation note or a tax anticipation note, we could potentially do that. And I think I included in your packet the cost as far as the interest. If we borrowed short-term for 2 to 3 months, would be anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 in interest costs.
So, Madam Chair, if I may, after my discussions with the finance director and the treasurer collector, it's my recommendation that based on those, that the board, if you'd like to move forward with providing some relief from a time factor for residents to pay their fourth quarter tax bills a month later, to move the due date from May 1st to June 1st, that the board approve that provision with the understanding that there would be some carrying costs for the town for a short-term borrowing, but that based on the limited benefit to the public and the administrative disruption to the finance offices, that the board not vote to adopt Section 11, but instead just encourage the treasurer to provide up to the $15 per taxpayer relief for late payments up through June 30th. So I'm sure the finance team would be open to taking any questions from the board if you have any questions or concerns you'd like to raise in regards to this issue and the recommendation.
Yeah, this is Loring. Jennifer, I'm curious to know, if you could just clarify, the $15 waiver would be per taxpayer, per household, or per bill?
Per bill.
Okay. I'm definitely philosophically in favor of relief. I think it's this is a time of unprecedented need, but I'm going to invite my colleagues to weigh in. Jim or Peter?
Hi, Lauren. I just wanted to see if Jim wants to get on first. I want to defer to him if he'd prefer. Otherwise, my comment would be I'll support what I believe our town administrator is asking at this point. But I'll let Mr. McCaffrey go.
So I've struggled to turn the red mic off. That means I'm being heard. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good. Step one. From my perspective, this is a moderate amount of relief, but it is relief for the taxpayers of Millis. And certainly we want to be responsive to the short-term issues that folks have. I mean, basically this is, if we were to go forward with the 1 month delay, we would be telling folks that they don't have to scramble around over the next 2 weeks to get their May 1st bill in. And this is a particularly critical period right now, of course, as we all remain under the state of emergency, both at the state and local level. So I think that it probably is prudent for us to move forward to grant that kind of relief to our taxpayers. The cost is our cost. We're going to have to pay, some interest cost. The only thing I would say is that to the extent that we have folks that have essentially prepaid their taxes through an escrow account, we would certainly encourage the escrow account managers and whatnot to remit the payment on time anyway. That's just urging. I mean, if we grant this, it's granted for everybody, not only households, but for businesses, for, any real estate owners in town. So it's for everybody, not just for a few. But if we move forward and you have the ability to pay, it's going to reduce the cost of borrowing, which ultimately is something that we're all going to pay too. So I think it's probably a pretty prudent thing for us to move forward and to adopt this 1 month delay in tax payments.
I'm going to ask town council if he wants to offer any updated opinions or put this in context with respect to other communities in Massachusetts that have adopted other relief packages.
I don't have anything from a legal perspective to say, Madam Chairwoman. The towns are all over more towns are adopting this than not adopting it. Some of them are adopting Section 10 and not Section 11. It's a little bit different across the board. Every time you adopt something like this, there's some impact to your bottom line revenue, but you're balancing that as a community against the need to provide relief to property owners who are facing unprecedented strain on their finances.
Jennifer, I received a text from somebody who's watching via cable, I guess, and the question was, is there any incentive or thank you for somebody who paid on time?
No, I mean, if you accept...
Well, wait a second. We would say thank you, yes. Because it's saving everybody money if you pay on time.
We would encourage people that do have the ability to pay, on time to do that. But if you do adopt Section 10, then, they would have the possibility to delay payment to June 1st. But yes, we would say thank you.
Are there any other questions from the floor? I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I'm happy for somebody to just unmute and chime in if there are any questions from the participants who are part of the Zoom meeting. Hearing none or seeing none, I'm not trying to avoid any. Are there any other comments by anybody who are participants, subject experts in particular? Not, I'm happy to entertain.
I would just reinforce what Mr. McCaffrey and others and Jennifer have said, that we need to keep in mind that anyone who can pay, it's a benefit to the town and to everyone to do so, but we understand the constraints that you're under. We thank anyone who can pay, and for those who are unable to, we certainly understand it. And that's something that we are doing our best to deal with also.
Jennifer, could you just outline for us, if we were to adopt Section 10, what kind of notification goes to the taxpayer so that they can be aware of this?
So the Division of Local Services just issued Bulletin 20-3 that allows for notification via website, any social media pages, and a push notification. So we could do a reverse 911 as well.
And we have a copy of a letter here. Is that what we're going to post? There's a sample notice to taxpayers that was in the packet. Is that what we're going to use, or is there some other notice we would give?
I need to review that before. I'm not exactly sure which one.
Jim, yes. I think if it's what's been was published by the Division of Local Services, that's kind of a model form. We would tailor it to exactly what you're passing. If you're passing Section 10, it would just be, which is the tax late payments.
Yep.
You're extending the deadline. That's all you would include in the notice. If you were going into Section 11, there are other elements of the notice as well.
Right. Okay. I mean, just to make people aware, we would hope to get this out if we adopt it. Don't be afraid of the fact that the letter is almost unreadable because of the references to various sections. But the point is that it's a positive notice to the taxpayers of this, somewhat limited relief, but relief nonetheless.
And the notice is what's originally thought to be subject to a requirement that it be mailed to every house. That is no longer a requirement. It's just posted electronically.
Okay. So the kinds of messages that Jennifer was talking about would be a way for us to make sure that people knew about this opportunity.
That's right.
And I would remind everybody here also, for whatever is adopted, this letter could be posted to the Treasurer Collector webpage, and then we can use the new Town Outbound Facebook page to announce this with a link to the Treasurer Collector webpage.
So, Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'm prepared to make a motion if it's in.
You do.
Yes, I move that the Select Board vote to extend the due date for property tax bills under General Laws 59, 57, Mass General Laws Section 59, 57, and 57C from May 1st, 2020 to June 1st, 2020.
Second.
So moved and seconded. I will poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Barnes, yes. The motion passes in its entirety, and we'll ask the Treasurer Collector to post that information as planned through the communication apparatus. Moving to the decision for 2B here, which is a late fee waiver up to June 30th.
Again, Madam
motion?
Chair, if I may, again, I would recommend, for a number of reasons, including that the relative benefit to the taxpayers on Section 11 is far less than Section 10, and that the Treasurer Collector has already indicated her willingness to be very liberal in the application of a $15 waiver for all bills, that the board vote not to adopt or take no action on Mass General Law, Chapter 60, Section 11.
But would we, in fact, then have to pass a motion that would give her that authority, or she already has it and we don't have to do anything?
She already has that authority by statute.
Yeah, she already has it.
Okay. Is there any other further conversation about this? None? So hearing none, I think that's implicit that we're going to take we're going to take no action. Should we vote to take no action? Mr. Town Administrator?
Sorry.
I'll defer to counsel since we have him on the line.
He says, no, it is totally not necessary. Are there any other items? Perhaps we should have town council stay for this next one, which is agenda item 20-080, third on our meeting today, which is really a reminder that the town does offer tax relief programs through Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, specifically to seniors. And when Terry Gonzalez was hired, she had indicated to the select board early on that it was her intent to make sure that we were appropriately maximizing these opportunities, and this is certainly a timely conversation. Is she on, or is Carol on to discuss this particular item?
Both Terry and I should be. Terry should be on as well.
Okay.
Terry, are you there?
I don't.
Well, I can certainly take it from here,
okay.
and if Terry comes on, she can jump in.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
So Terry did a review of the current senior exemptions that we, as a town, give, and through her research, she found that of the, and I think in your packet you have it, the breakdown of what our exemption types are currently granted, which is a 17D. That's partial exemptions for seniors, surviving spouses, minor children with a deceased parent who meets specific ownership or occupancy requirements. We also give a 41C, which is exemption to seniors who meet specific ownership, residency, income, and asset requirements. The guidelines that we currently used for 2020, the maximum income amounts seem low. And during our research, as well as the maximum assets seem low. During our research, we found that in calendar year or the town meeting of 2016, that provisions had been voted by the town to be able to increase the amounts of both the maximum income and the maximum assets. However, over time, that hasn't happened. The prior assessor hadn't adjusted the rates. So I see that the assistant assessor's on, or the assessor's on right now, so she can jump in anytime. But what we'd like to do is we don't need to take any action today, other than Terry needs to go back and start applying these increased percentages over time to what the values are. So it would increase their income limit and also the assets for the seniors as they apply for the next round of exemption. Is that right, Terry?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. I could hear you before, but for some reason I wasn't able to speak.
Oh, okay. So in that particular instance, on those items, then you were in agreement, Terry, that based on those articles that were passed in 2016 town meeting, all we need to do is update our schedule for when people do their next round of applications for exemptions, correct?
Yes, for the income and the assets, yes.
Do you want to continue on from here?
Okay. So the other two items that Carol and Mike and I discussed were on the 41C. The towns have a local option for an age to be 65 versus 70. The state is 70, which Millis currently is 70 years old. For the 41C, we can go to town meeting and ask that the age limit be lowered to 65. Carol, Mike, and I do recommend that we do that. That will make the program eligible for a larger part of the population. And the other item would be the 41A, the tax deferral program. Currently, the maximum income is $20,000. We would like to bring that to town meeting and have the maximum income increase to $40,000.
And have you, Terry, this is Loring Barnes, have you You done an analysis as to what this will do for the residents in terms of their ability to more people to participate? Is there going to be a spike by a percentage of 20% of eligibility, or do we have those numbers yet?
We don't have those numbers. We don't have access to people's income and assets unless they give us that information. Currently, for fiscal 2019, we only had, where's my spreadsheet? I'm sorry. For the 41Cs for fiscal 19, we only had 6 applicants, or 6 people approved. It's a very small number, and by increasing the assets and the incomes, I do believe that number will go up. If we do lower the age limit, 65 versus 70, I do believe that number would come up. I don't have information on what that is. I could ask the town clerk's office if they have an age, if they have information that would tell us what the number of seniors between the age of 65 and 70 is.
Okay, that's great. So the point here is twofold. One is we do already have some seniors, senior-directed tax relief programs, but 2, that you are working on proposals to potentially be brought before town meeting, which was just moved to June 8th, that would expand the eligibility for more people on the basis of annual income as well as age eligibility. So that's good news.
Well, the annual income was already approved at a previous town meeting. It just hasn't been increased. We would just go with what was approved at the town meeting in 2016 and increase the assets and the income. We don't need to go to town meeting for that. We do need to go to town meeting for the age.
So is there a decision that needs to be made here, or is that something that you all can just do?
Well, actually, there are, as Terry indicated, there's a few items that will need to be approved by town meeting, and at the board's next meeting on April 27th, you will have 2 articles that address the requested changes. Terry, I don't know if you just want to touch upon those 2 changes again, and they would be, those changes would require a town meeting approval.
The one change would be changing the 41C age limit from 70 down to 65. That would give a larger part of the population accessibility to the 41C. And the other would be the tax deferral program. Currently, there are no tax deferred properties in Millis. That would change the maximum income from $20,000 and increase it to $40,000.
Is 40, for those who don't know, is 40,000 the state threshold, or is that a recommendation from you?
That is a recommendation from myself, yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
A quick question, Terry, regarding the veterans. Are there any changes there, and how do they qualify for that program?
No, the veterans program is set up by the state. The towns don't have, the towns can't, there's nothing the towns can do to increase or decrease the veterans' eligibility or what they're eligible for.
And what are the requirements that you're aware of for them with respect to any kind of tax relief?
One of the items is 22, Veterans Exemption 22. That is for a 10% disability up to a 90% disability or a Purple Heart. There's 22A, which is the loss of a foot, a hand, or an eye. 22B is the loss of 2 limbs or both eyes. 22E is 100% disability, and they have to prove that qualification every year, and they do get a letter from the Veterans Administration proving that qualification. And there's a 22F, which is a paraplegic due to a war injury, and that's 100% exemption. Millis does not have any 22F. But we do have approximately for fiscal year 2020, 53 veterans exemptions were applied for and given. For fiscal 2019, there were 72. So we do have a very large veterans population, and they are taking advantage of items that are available to them.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions of?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I think that, maybe we take a minute or two to just make sure that people understand what a 17D 41C is. They are exemptions. As I understand it, 71D and 41C, and there's two of those, could lead to a tax exemption on property taxes of up to $1,000.
Yes.
Other credits are more substantial, as was just described for the veterans. We also have a senior tax credit program where seniors are providing services for the town and getting some reduction in their real estate taxes. I think that's up to $1,000 as well. But the deferral program is significantly more potential to provide tax relief. Because for those who qualify, what happens is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, that the real estate tax, really you're exempt from it, except it becomes a charge against your house property until such time as it is sold. And then at that time, when the property is sold, the uncollected taxes are in fact collected. So these are significant.
That is correct.
Yeah, in their impact on individuals. So I think that's important for us to sort of outline these, not just with, what the dollar thresholds are, but what the opportunity is. I think we can clearly work with the Council on Aging as well as the Veterans Agent to make sure that the affected populations get counseling as to where these might be available. But clearly we need to know also in terms of the potential impact on revenue, because there's a trade-off, if you will. May not be significant, but it probably could be. But we want to make sure that we have a comprehensive program for seniors, and they understand what their options are. And I don't want any senior out there to think that everybody who's over 65 gets one of these. There's some significant thresholds for level of income. So it is intended to really target to seniors who are, making less money, so that they can have an opportunity to continue to live in their homes in town. So I think there's both a description of this as well as adjusting the dollar thresholds. Now, Terry, you can correct me where I was wrong, okay?
No, you did a very nice job of explaining it. Thank you. One thing I would like to add for the tax deferral explanation is you do not have to defer all of your taxes. If your tax bill is $5,000 and you're comfortable paying $2,500 of that, you can defer $2,500.
And it's done annually, right?
So it is done annually, and you can change how much you defer annually. If 1 year you're comfortable paying, you're okay to pay the entire amount, you can do that. Or if you need to defer the entire amount, you can do that. Or you can defer whatever amount you need so that you're not having additional pressure in your life to pay your taxes.
But there is interest associated with it that would be added to the property at
To the balance due.
To the balance due, right? And that's something that can be voted on. The current interest rate is 8%. It could be as low as 4% or 2%, whatever would be voted on by the select board.
The town meeting vote, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have two.
Is it a town meeting vote for the interest?
Yes.
Yeah, we have two issues here. One issue is, should we propose amendments to the requirements, propose that for town meeting action in June. So that was one level, and you're suggesting that the income levels we have are too low and we have the opportunity to raise them. Second issue is, how do we make sure that those who are eligible for this benefit really have the information they need to determine whether it's something they want to apply for?
Right.
Yes.
I could also make a comment on that. We need to get not just the information out there, but Terry and Carol, we as a town need to try to collect as much information as we can so we can understand potential impact regardless. So they're two different things. I would encourage the seniors and the veterans to take advantage of this, those who qualify. But we as a town need to understand where we might stand as a result of their actions.
Terry, this is Lauren. One of the questions I have is, are these programs appropriately spelled out on a menu on the treasurer-collector webpage, or is this something that you're working on to kind of reconfigure so that it's really easy for people to see the menu and then determine their eligibility?
The information is on it's on the assessor's page, not the treasurer-collector's page.
Okay.
The information is out there. We also have the information in our office. There is, you can only apply from a certain date to a certain date. For this current fiscal year, we can't take any more applications. Any changes would go for fiscal year 2021, which starts July 1st.
And the deferred program, they have to apply every year for it, correct?
Whether it's the deferral program or the exemption program, you have to apply every year. Applications are sent out to people that have had it previously, and if we get calls during the year, we keep a list and then we'll send it to them. I would like to speak to if changes are made, or even if changes aren't made, I would like to speak to the Director of Council on Aging so that we can do a program for the seniors to make them aware of what is available. I don't know how aware they are of what they may be eligible for.
And we can also use the outbound, they have their own social media, and we can also use the town outbound social media to tee people up for looking ahead to applications. What did you say, the July 1st? Is that what you said?
Yes, it's where you reside and what your income is as July 1st.
Okay.
And you can apply until April 1st. So there is a long period of time to apply. Okay. And we do send the applications out in August so that people have time to fill them out. If they need help filling them out, we'll be more than happy to help them fill them out. Making photocopies of any information that's required with the application, we could take care of that as well.
It's also important for everyone to realize that all of this information is 100% confidential. It is only for the eyes of the assessor and the Board of Assessors. The Director of Finance can't see it. The town administrator can't see it. No one else in the town has any opportunity to see this information but the assessor and the Board of Assessors.
Okay. So this was more informational, and then you're going to come back to us with proposals for anything that needs to go before town meeting?
Right, that would be in the form of articles at your next meeting.
Okay, that sounds great. Anybody else have any other comments or questions? I think anything that we can do to expand awareness of relief programs, particularly with what's going on right now, is really important. So I appreciate, Terry, you coming and identifying these opportunities for us. Anybody else have any other questions for either Terry or Carol? Hearing none, I'm going to move, and there's no action that we're going to take now other than we look forward to your proposals. And I'm going to move forward to the next agenda item, and in doing so, I'm going to thank and acknowledge our town council, Jay Tellerman, for participating in the front end of our meeting. The items, he's looked at the balance of the agenda and doesn't see that he's going to be having to play a direct role. So if he wants to depart, he is thanked with our gratitude, but he's certainly welcome to participate further. Moving from kind of COVID-related discussion, I'd like to invite our director of the DPW, Jim McKay, to brief us on some regular water testing and what he's recommending as a decision as an outcome of that test.
Thank you. I'm back. Still taking phone calls. we're open today. So I'm working off the memo that I supplied to you before Monday night's meeting. As you're aware, we tested for PFAS. It was a preventive maintenance type testing that we started to do. The DEP will eventually, invoke a limit, an MGL on that, and it's going to. What PFAS is, it's a whole long explanation, and believe me, Kleinfelder will be here to explain it all. It's mainly a Teflon type spray that's been put on many different cooking devices. It's been put on food. It's been put on nail polish, lipstick, on and on and on. So we did some testing up at the old landfill because that's closest to our wells, and that's in the zone 2. And some of the readings came back a little high for our liking, and what I'm asking today, we had to do follow-up testing. So I'm asking that the select board allow the town administrator to sign a contract not to exceed $25,000 to Kleinfelder. $9,500 of that has already been was part of the first phase of the testing. What will happen, and we'll get the contract, is just due to the what's going on. We haven't been able to receive the contract quite yet. Will be for the follow-up testing, notification to the Mass DEP, to the public. Also, we will have to notify the public, and a start of whatever remediation that may need to be done, if any. And I want to stress that, if any. We did get some good news from some of it. We haven't got the full test results back, and I would hope to be able to update you on that at your next select board meeting.
So, Jim, this is Loring. Would you, do you expect that you would have, if we were to authorize this today, that testing would continue and then you would be updating us as to the further test results on the 27th? Is that accurate?
Correct. One of the first initiation from the DEP was to shut down our wells 1 and 2, which I notified you that we have, we did do that immediately. And we've already done the testing. And if it doesn't, if this isn't approved, we'll just have to take it out of the budget, and we'll just, we'll stop where we are. So the testing's already been done, and like I said, the testing was at wells 1 and 2, and the closest tap after that was in the distribution system, which is the DPW garage building. So we're waiting to hear back full results from that. We did get back results in the raw water that right now are also exceeding the limits, but we believe through the treatment process, it's all clean. But until we get all the final results back, we'll go from there.
And can you just tell the community how this will impact them? The 2 wells have been shut down. Do they notice? Do they have any idea? Or is it really seamless?
So right now, luckily, since we've changed most of the, increased the water mains going towards Dover Road, Village Street, and all that. If you remember, the last time we did this last year, almost right, it was more towards Christmas time. We had shut down wells 1 and 2, and it caused havoc with rusty water and throughout that whole area, Dover Road, Village Street, and it seems like this time the bigger mains did what they were supposed to do in that area. So it was like a seamless transition because they've been off for well over a week. And it's the right time, it's a good time of year because we can run our wells 5 and 6. If it goes through the summer, and we will get permission from the DEP to keep the wells 5 and 6 on all summer long, but I don't see anything at this moment being any, just a seamless transition. This water pressure, the wells, the four wells that we have on, can handle everything that, the town needs.
Any of my colleagues have questions or comments?
Yeah, I do, as a matter of fact. And Jim, you and I have chatted very briefly. Yep. I'm not disputing that we're going to have, whether it's moral obligation or otherwise, do the shutdowns on those 2 wells. But I am concerned that I don't even understand what the implications are of these chemicals that they found. I mean, you're telling us, I think, that they're part of what was part of cookware and everything else for many years, and they've been in the soil for years. What are the implications to us, to the human body, health-wise or otherwise? I haven't seen anything on that. I could ask a variety of other questions in terms of how do they get to this information. For example, if they're testing and they see that it's showing up as 50 or 100 or 1,000 times whatever this level is that they're going after, did they do a linear analysis backwards to decide here's where they're going to go to that level? That's like doing a radiation analysis backwards, which most scientists will look at and say, you're out of your mind to do that analysis. It makes no sense. I'm not saying it makes no sense, but what I am saying is there's a lot of unknown in what they're coming up with. And that does bother me because we're going to end up spending a fair amount of money for something that we don't even understand at this point. Yeah, we will take the action because it's prudent to do so, but I'd sure like to know a lot more about it. The other part that's bothering me is an additional $25,000 Kleinfelder to do some additional testing at this point. Do we need to do that right now? It's not that we don't want to do the proper testing, but once again, we're not about to be in a robust financial situation coming up. Let's face it, things are going to be tough, and they're probably going to get tougher. So I'm trying to look at it and say, what do we really need to do? If your recommendation is we have no alternative, so be it. But if some of this can be deferred, I would ask that we consider that. At any rate, those are my thoughts.
Sure. So the Mass DEP, they've set a limit of an MDL of 20. Yeah. And I think in the report that I sent out, you can see that some of them upwards of 60, 70 parts per billion. Yeah. And that far exceeds anything. And once, back in history-wise, what they are, I advised the board, I think back like November or December, of actually what PFAS was. I will find that memo again and I'll resend it out. It's the chronological, what is PFAS? Why do we need to be concerned about it? Why the public has to be concerned about it? I will resend that to you, but I had already sent that out once. Once we tested it and once we found out that this level is so high, yes, we do have to, we need to continue, or we'll just leave the wells off forever until we come up with a plan. Whether it goes from a water problem or it goes to a general type problem, that's the question, and that's going to be, directed in the next phase of this. The landfill is covered not under the water or sewer rates or anything else like that. That's covered under the general fund. And it's not supposed to be leaking out, is what I'm trying to tell you. And that's the problem when it was capped back in, I think it was 2000 something, that it was capped. Now whether it's leaking and it has tears or holes in the membrane, it's not good. It's and I didn't really want to get that technically into that type of discussion right now until we have something to tell us what are the results that we could knock off maybe the wells. But we are going to have to do something with the landfill because it is leaching out. The test monitoring wells that are out there, they're put there and they're put there for testing. We do test for several other contaminants in that area. PFAS is not one of them, and the only reason why we went and we tested the PFAS because it's in our zone 2. It's in the zone of the well protection of wells 1 and 2. And they've had problems at wells 1 and 2, and there's been treatment. When it was shut down many, many years ago, when it was rebuilt, there was a specific type of treatment that could have been built to take care of this. And I think that's what we're seeing, that the treatment, when it comes into the wells and after it goes out into the distribution system, it's coming out clean. In the additional, it's not, and maybe I misspoke, it's not an additional $25,000. It's not to exceed $25,000, and we've already paid $9,500. So technically, for the whole testing aspect, it is 25,000.
Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Mr. McCaffrey?
Yes, just so I can be clear, I mean, this is not really local option here. We have to test this to maintain our license to operate a municipal water supply. I mean, it's not a local option. I don't want to bring up the unfunded mandate. Well, I am. I mean, it's another unfunded mandate.
It is, absolutely.
I think that, there's some, as I understand it, there's some dispute from folks on the public health side as to whether this is a serious problem or not. But in any event, we have to do it. I'm also assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, not that I don't want to make sure that we're not spending money that we don't have to, but this is really from the water enterprise. And so, I mean, there's certainly a reserve there, which is intended for these kinds of things. So I don't think it's an FY20 budget issue. But as my colleague indicated to me, and you sort of hinted at it, Jim, that the real potential issue here is going to be remediation at the landfill. And I think that it's going to be important for us to at least give some thought. For example, if we don't already have there, and I don't recall, we better put something on the capital plan that indicates that this landfill, which we did everything we were supposed to do in 2000, by now the rules have all changed. And so that's a potential issue that we have to keep our eye on. And to your point, it's not related to the water or sewer. It's strictly a public works enterprise.
That's correct. Yes.
So from my point of view, I think we go ahead and support the conclusion of this round of testing. The only question I have is, does this testing not only determine how much of this material is in there, but where it's coming from?
Yes.
Okay, so it's going to tell us where it's coming from.
Yes.
Okay.
But is the statute of limitations passed if there's any accountability for any of the companies that helped us do the landfill work way back when?
I'm sure that what happened was they did everything they were supposed to then. Doesn't mean we go after them, but
right.
The problem is the rules change.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to find ourselves.
We both better remember, can I just say one quick thing, Madam Chair? Don't forget now, there was 2 different sites up there that were also tested. One, I mean, it's really not that talked about all that much, and I believe that was the old burn site. Is that? I don't know. In the cap landfill, so that's where they're going to delineate whether it's coming from either which one of them. It's on either side of the road, and they'll be able to narrow that down.
Well, I can remember my kids playing soccer up there. Looked like a great opportunity. Started to work its way through the soil.
Yeah.
And then no more soccer field.
Oh, yeah, the glass, yeah.
So do we have a motion for this?
Well, I'd make a motion, Madam Chair, that the board approve a contract of not to exceed $25,000 for PFAS water testing with Kleinfelder.
Second.
So moved and seconded. I will poll the board to approve. Mr. McCaffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes, yes, it's been approved not to exceed $25,000 for the testing to continue, and hopefully we'll have some new information for our next meeting.
Oh, no, you will.
The next item is an annual.
So, just quickly, the next is our annual, and you have to approve the water ban, annual water ban, and it reads just as the slide decks. It hasn't changed, but I want everybody to be cautious this year. We're in the midst of a permit. That the permit will be maybe given to us by the end, somewhere in between this May 1st and September 30th date. I want everyone to know this is going to be the last time we'll ever see anything like this. I think I explained during a previous meeting. Right now we're still under our old permit, so we have the right to go out with this type of watering ban. It will be knocked down to maybe 1-2 times a day. But that's in the future. We'll worry about that at a later date.
A week, right?
I'm sorry. Yes, a week. You're correct. So
it's going to be like the getting gas was in the 70s. If your house was an even number, you can water on some day, and an odd number, do another.
It could be. Yep.
May I ask a question, Madam Chair?
Sure.
Quickly, I understand what we're doing here, but I also remember that there was discussion that we had a lot of capacity in our water system that we were looking to sell at one time. So I know the questions are going to come up. If we had that kind of capacity, why are we suddenly having to go into a water ban? Could you help us explain that?
Sure. So the capacity that we have, they're actually looking at that capacity, and they're looking at what the town built over the years was in an excessive amount. And it's not the Charles River Pollution District. That's two separate entities. One's for sewer, and it's the Charles River Watershed Association that are actually overseeing this, because all the water comes from the Charles River, whether it's groundwater or surface water. They believe that even though we're a groundwater community, they believe that it's still influenced through the Charles River. They have a lot to say with the DEP. Right now, we have the most robust type of watering ban in the Charles River, probably in the district. They are looking at when we were trying to sell the water to Medway, they were looking at it then to see that we would have to up our daily usage. I was told that they would not, what we have permitted right now, they will not lower it. But if you look at our permit from, even the last permit from the one before that, they lowered by thousands of gallons per day of usage. I gave them all the new building stuff that's being done in Millis, so hopefully they will keep that into account. It's just the idea of it's conservation, and the Charles River Watershed Association they've got a lot of pull in this area, and it's with the Mass DEP, because ultimately they're the ones that will give us a permit. We'll never lose the right to sell water to Franklin, or even if we wanted to sell to somebody else, because they feel if we can sell water to somebody else downstream or even upstream of where we're pumping, it's a good thing. It's a conservation type aspect. So I hope that explains something.
Well, the fact of the matter is we have the water. The water is here. And we have the ability to pump a couple of million gallons a day if we needed to. We have that ability. We have the infrastructure in place. The Commonwealth is regulating our ability to use the water we have so that somebody else can use it.
Right.
That's the fact. And the somewhat troublesome to me is the fact that I believe, Jim, you can update us on this, that the state is either going to or has already permitted Norfolk to build a well within the protected area of one of our wells. And so, not suggesting they talk out of both sides of their mouth, and we oppose that. I mean, we told the state that's just an unreasonable use of water.
Inconsistencies.
Exactly, and we have a right to appeal the permit. I should have let you know that too. Just because they give it to us, it doesn't mean that we don't get it back. We can send it to our consultants, and we have a right to appeal anything that they give us, which we may do.
They don't give us anything. They don't give us. We have to earn it.
That's correct.
We have a motion to approve this water ban.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that the board approve the mandatory outside watering ban between the hours of 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. effective May 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2020.
I'll second it.
I'm sorry, that applies to all Millis residences and businesses.
Yes, and that...
Do we want to include the fines in the motion?
We probably ought to mention them.
Yeah, the penalties for violation are $50 for the first offense, $100 for the second and each subsequent offense.
Okay, I'll second that.
I will poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes, yes. We are enforcing an annual outside water ban. There are fines, and I just want to note two of the items that are on the slides. Not only that both this is both for residents as well as for businesses, and those of us who participated in some appellate hearings with respect to water bills last year will remember that among the appeals were for malfunctioning water systems and or sprinkler systems. So I want to bring to everybody's attention that if you are traveling or you have an outside sprinkler system, it is very important that you maintain it and that you do whatever needs to be done from a technology standpoint to not have it running during a rainstorm, because you will be greeted by a fine for doing so. And I was asked a question, will this information be posted to the Millis website and or sent out to residents? Mr. McKay.
Good. So the signs are already up. They're all over Millis. They've been out, and we will put it in the next mailing of the water billing cycle, and absolutely will be on the website May 1st.
Excellent. And we can also use, again, our Newtown Facebook page to push this out. And the other item that I was going to mention for those people who are trying to get rid of some of the debris that was just added to with this week's storm Monday, permitted outside burning, those permits expire on May 1st. So we flick the switch in both directions. So if you are cleaning up debris from your yard and this was your planned use of your permit to get rid of them, just take note that the calendar is moving to May 1st very quickly. Our next item, agenda item, thank you, Jim. Our next agenda item will be led by Bob Weiss in his capacity as our Energy and Sustainability Director, and it's specifically an authorization for the town, through him and the town administrator, to participate in a public bid process that would bring competitive lower electrical rates to all users in the town. Mr. Weiss.
Thank you. My first question is to make sure everybody can hear me.
Yes.
Good. As you all remember, Millis adopted the community electrical aggregation program in its 2016 spring town meeting. And since then, the town has submitted and the Department of Public Utilities accepted our plan. And twice now, last spring, last fall, we have the town has gone out to look for bids for the energy supply with our consultant, Good Energy. We got prices that were fairly good both times, but we didn't think the margins were really didn't merit the residents leaving either their Eversource default rates or their own third-party energy supply rates. So this, the 21st of April, I guess next Thursday, we'll have another opportunity to go out and get bids from energy suppliers. But this time, our position is very good for pricing for two reasons. One, energy prices are very low right now, and that means we can go out and snag a 2-year contract and give people a stable supply cost for the next 2 years. And two, we're going to be part of the largest consumer energy supply consortium in the Commonwealth. So that gives us a lot of bidding power. So tonight, I'm asking the board to appoint the town administrator as the primary representative and myself as the alternate representative to participate in the community electrical aggregation bid process on April 21st and to execute an electrical services agreement on behalf of the town.
Right. And the one point that I noted when we had conversations with this about Bob is, can you just explain to the community what will happen, assuming that this motion is passed, when you go out and you secure these rates? Everybody who is an electrical consumer automatically defaults to these rates and has to opt out. Is that accurate? Can you just review that part of the process?
Yes, it is. This is the way aggregations work. This is state mandated to have a process that is an opt-out process. It's the same arrangement you get when you deal with Eversource, and it's very necessary, really. Let's say if you're a new customer, you come into the state, you move to Millis, and you call up Eversource and you say, turn on my power, you will automatically have your power turned on, and you automatically get a bill, which will be at the default rate, which Eversource has chosen. But you can opt out of that rate if you wish, because if you find a third-party supplier, then you can call Eversource and say, I want to get out of your rate, and we're going to use this third-party supply. You know, it's really interesting. I've heard a number of people get shocked a little bit by this opt-out, and it's very interesting because no one questions Eversource's right to this opt-out default. But when when somebody else is doing it, you got to consider who's looking out for your betterment here. The town or Eversource. So I think that's interesting. What will happen is we will mail out to all residents and businesses that qualify. We'll mail out the opt-out information. That's a business return card. Now, I mentioned customers that qualify because customers who already have a third-party supply plan will not get the mailings. They will automatically stay on their plan. And so you simply mail back. Customers who do qualify will get the mailing. They simply mail back the business reply envelope, or they can contact us or our Good Energy, who is the broker, the people that we work with. You can contact them on the website, or the town website link. We'll have a special website dedicated to this on the town website. You can even use a telephone and call us, or call me, or call the broker.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Mr. McCaffrey? Anybody? Mr. Germain?
Just a quick comment. I think it's important for even those of us who have a third party to get the information as to what this new rate would be, because it could be useful in terms of saying, do we want to opt out of where we are and opt into what the town is offering? At least it gives us a rate comparison and an option for negotiation on our side. I say that because we've been negotiating back and forth for years, and we haven't used Eversource per se. We have a third party involved.
Mr. McCaffrey?
Yes, Bob, if you could just I want to make sure that people understand the timing here. What we're talking about here is authorizing you and or the town administrator to, I guess, accept the bid on April 21st. And if we accept that bid because we think we might finally get some, positive economic benefit, what's the timing in terms of the switchover?
Well, what will happen is the startup, which is basically when the electricity flows under this new program, would be starting in January. That means the sign-up period will be in November, and we will. So people have plenty of time. And to answer Pete's question, to answer the question about what about those folks who will not be getting a mailing, we will call it a marketing program. We call it an education program that will go on through the fall. We'll announce this on our town website, on the Facebook. We'll give people links. We will have some events when we can tell people. We will have one at the public library. We will have one at the Council of Aging. So people who even have now third-party plans will get plenty of information on this. And it's pretty simple to sign up for it. All you have to do is either call us or notify us through the website. We'll make it pretty user-friendly. And information will be mailed, though, to those who qualify, both businesses and residents.
And the cost of this mailing, does the town have to pay for it, or does the provider pay for it?
Provider will pay for that. That's all considered in the cost of the bid.
Okay. Okay, do we have a motion to authorize Bob to do this with our town administrator?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that the board appoint the town administrator as the town's primary representative, the town's energy manager as the town's alternative representative, and authorize them as our designees to execute a contract for the supply of electricity in the form of an electric service agreement on bid day, April 21st, 2020, for the community electricity aggregation program.
Second.
I have to make up those words, by the way.
Yeah.
You read it very well, too.
CEA, 5 times fast. I'm going to poll the board for this motion. Mr. McCaffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes, yes. And you will bring a report back to our next select board meeting?
I will do that.
Okay, that sounds great. Or the town administrator can, depending on whatever you determine is best.
We will both be there.
We have a approval of a water sewer department commitment. Do I have a motion for that from one of my colleagues?
Multitask here. I gotta find it. Hit unmute. Madam Chair, I make a motion that the board approve the water sewer department commitment to the collector for fiscal year 2020, the month of March 2020, in the amount of $3,083.53.
Second.
So moved. I will poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Barnes? Yes. The motion is approved. Have you had an opportunity to read the draft meeting minutes?
Yes.
We have a motion to approve.
I had one change that I asked Karen to make in the meeting minutes of the 2nd.
Okay.
As Ms. Frederick morphed herself into Ms. Kleinfelder.
Oh, there you go.
Paragraphs.
Owns the company now, Jim.
Excellent.
Otherwise, with that change, I would move that the board approve the minutes for the meetings of March 2nd and March 16th, 2020.
Perfect.
I'll second that. I'm just trying to make sure I was there on March 2nd. I think I was. Yes, I was.
Yeah, the 16th is when you weren't there.
Right.
Even left, I think.
Yeah. So I'll second that.
I will poll the board to approve the meeting minutes from the select board meetings of March 2nd and March 16th. Mr. McCaffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Germain?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes? Yes. With the correction that Mr. McCaffrey indicated, those are approved. There are a couple things that I breezed through at the beginning I want to make sure that we take note of. First of all, that the Zoning Board of Appeals, otherwise known as the ZBA, is looking for the board to appoint a member. So if somebody wants to get involved at a really interesting time for the town in this group, there's a talent form on the website, and Karen Beret can help you if you reach out to her if you haven't found it. So we definitely encourage people to participate in town government. Equally important and vital, and you'll hear all of us talk about this right up to the point where we can't do it anymore, is completion of our 2020 census. We're looking with great hope, but certainly concern about both state and federal aid in light of the current catastrophe and the costs associated with it. And it is just so imperative that our town has its maximum funding opportunity at hand, and that can only be accomplished if everybody is spending this downtime at home by going online, not just to do binge watching of your favorite TV streaming show, but also to fill out your census form. It's super easy online, takes very little time, and it really does make a very important difference. Fiscal 21 proposed budgets, as went through the public budget process, as well as that of the finance department and the town administrator's office, are available on the town website for public comment and question. I think it's not going to surprise anybody that as we put our foot on the gas for the fiscal year 21 budgeting process, that the the process that was begun and largely conducted at the front end of this year and where we're headed going into fiscal year 21 are very different worlds apart. And so we are going to be challenging all of the departments to look critically at their original proposals with the town administrator's leadership to make some hopefully economical decisions through partnering, through reinventing their plans, and by being really understanding about the economic impact of what has happened for us and the need for the town to be able to continue to provide essential services to residents and businesses. So I just want to invite the town, the community, the leaders of the department, and everybody to go to the town website where they will find these budgets available and to make any comments so that those can be incorporated in the process. Any of my colleagues have any comments specific to the budget deliberations, because we do need to get those underway in the public domain and to be working with the finance committee as well.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Meeting for that tonight, as a matter of fact.
I think it's imperative that we have some much more detailed discussions on the budget, some of the issues that are coming up, and begin to look at not just what the departments need, but what we ought to be putting forward as articles. And we need to take a more proactive action fairly quickly. To that end, I like to suggest that we need to do something prior to the end of this month in terms of the select board getting together. So I'd like to offer that to you, and the hope that maybe we could have one more meeting before the end of the month as soon as possible so that we can review this and begin thinking or actually making suggestions as to where we ought to be going.
I'd ask the town administrator, we currently have a meeting planned for the 27th.
That's correct, and I do
have a growing business list of things to discuss, and certainly the budget is a super important priority. So I don't know whether or not you feel that a revisit of the budget, bringing it to the present, would be possible for next Monday. If that would be too soon, I don't know what my colleagues are doing.
Well, Madam Chair, if I may, the April 27th, I had intended to present a draft budget to the board, as well as the updated set of articles for the board's discussion and deliberation. And then following that meeting, if my recommendation is that the board would like to set up a special workshop meeting to discuss just budgets and articles, we can certainly do that. But I believe the 27th of April is the date I'm shooting for to have that update. And I think, again, following that meeting, if the board would like some lengthy discussions on that, certainly a workshop budget meeting would not be, out of order at that point if we have some in-depth discussions that need to take place in order to finalize an FY21 budget.
I'm going to ask Mr. Kaczynski, our town administrator, if it's possible to bring that forward by a week or so. Here's my concern. The 27th begins to get us to the point where we have literally only about 4, maybe 5 weeks at the outside before we get to the point where the Finance Committee and others have decisions that have to be made. I think that with what's going on in our budget for the state and the town coming up in the future, as a result of the shutdowns, the quarantines, and some of the other issues that have been discussed earlier, plus we haven't even heard, or at least I haven't, the schools budgeting at this point. Now maybe I was ill when they presented, I don't know, but
I don't believe the school has presented to the Finance Committee as of yet.
Right, but it's important that we begin to address some of these things, even if we can't address them all. At least that's my perspective. And the sooner we begin to address some of the issues, I think the better, because we need some time to deal with them and to have others respond. And by the time you go through an iterative process, you can eat up 2 to 3 weeks very quickly. And that's what my concern is.
I have a question for the town administrator, which is, can we split the uprights on the date and not wait until the 27th and ask that this process be a specific budget-only conversation, maybe not Monday, but maybe the 22nd, which is a week from today, Wednesday. It could be during the daytime if we need to. But I share everybody's concern that we don't want to be bottlenecked, and I think that the decisions we were expecting to make are going to be different from the decisions that we're going to have to make. So I'm just wondering, if the process can be accelerated on the department head, on the department, director's level, so that we can come to the meeting of the 27th, which is going to be a whole bunch of other business, in a better position to be able to discuss this or toss it back to the Finance Committee. And Jim McCaffrey, you might have something to say about this as well. And I am watching our clock, by the way. It's 5:40, and I am aware that there's another meeting coming up, so I want to be cognizant of that.
Well, Madam Chair, I guess my initial concern here is somewhat consistent with what my colleagues have mentioned. Even if we're not to the point where we have it all wrapped up, I'm concerned about the revenue projection,
right.
What we think we're going to actually have, which is, of course, not the only thing we have to deal with, but it's certainly important. And if we have to do some contingency planning, that is, we won't know necessarily what the state aid is absolutely going to be, but if we don't have some, let's just say, what if scenarios to think through, then we're really running out of time. The town meeting is now scheduled for the 8th. Hopefully, we'll be able to convene the town meeting that date. But if for some reason we have to defer it, we don't have much time before the fiscal year ends, and there's all kinds of opportunities to extend beyond June 30th, which are problematic in my view. I don't think they give us a lot of wiggle room, but I'm interested in trying to get even some interim information that we can glean a week from now would be helpful as far as I'm concerned.
So based upon that, Madam Chair, what I would recommend then is either next Wednesday or Thursday, whatever is more convenient for the board, to have a budget meeting workshop of the board where we can discuss, a revenue projection update based on where we are now, as well as some general policy discussions about moving forward and what adjustments may have to be made to the budget in order to try to meet those limitations. And then perhaps, the week after, we'd be ready to probably get into more of the fine details of the budget in order to accomplish those goals.
Yeah, I think we need to move sooner rather than later, and we're going to be in for some really difficult decisions, and we need to be able to move sooner rather than later across the board, I would think. And especially if we're in the pipeline of working with the Finance Committee, they need to hear what we view, the board views as priorities for the town in the upcoming year. So can we, I don't know if we need to set a time right now, or can you come back to us with a time? I have a commitment in the morning, so I'm better off in the afternoon on Wednesday, the 22nd, if that works for people.
22nd is good for me.
I could do the afternoon of the 22nd.
Yep.
That would be okay with me. I just trying to remember what meeting I've got in the evening.
I know, we have a lot of evenings, so I would say earlier rather than, like an early afternoon if we could do it.
Yeah, we could do 1 or 2 if you'd like something like that.
That's fine. I mean, I want to give, we're all in these evening meetings starting to happen. Are there any other things that I have omitted? We did announce both the election and the town meeting moving into June at this point. I don't think there's anything that's been omitted, so I think we are in a position to adjourn this meeting with the intent to announce a budget-centric meeting for Wednesday the 22nd at a date to be announced, time to be announced. Do I have a motion for an adjournment?
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Second?
So moved. I'll poll the board. Mr. McCaffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Jermaine?
Yes.
Barnes? Yes. Thank you very much to the town of Millis, the people who stuck with us for the duration of this meeting. And the next one coming up, I believe, Finance Committee is Is that correct?
That's correct. They're coming up at 6 o'clock.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your time and for all your input. And Mike, we'll look forward to hearing from you with respect to this meeting on the 22nd.
Yes, I will get back to the board with a recommended time in the afternoon and be ready to have that discussion next week.
That sounds great. Everybody stay safe and please consult the town website because it is continually updated with information relative to financial programs as well as any public health information that you might need. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.